So here I am, standing before all of you, very spiritual people, and it makes me really nervous because when writing this devotion, there's this little voice that speaks and says, "Who do you think you are to be writing, to be sharing with these people about God?" They all have way more biblical knowledge than you. But then there's another little voice that rings clear and loud, and that's God's voice. "You are my daughter, whom I prepared in advance for just this moment, before you even knew about it." And I'm going to try not to cry. I had always wanted to become a teacher. It was something that was intrinsically in me from a very young age. But I never thought that I would attend university. You see, this was something that no one in our family had done. Both my parents were born in an era where as soon as you could work, you were out of school and working. Study was a luxury that they could not afford. There was no HECS fees, HECS debts back then. Dad was a tradesman house painter and Mum was a hospital cook. They also came from an era when you sent your children to Sunday school but didn't attend church yourself. And I think that they actually had good intentions for my brother, my sister and I. Yes, there's me. And that's Mum and Dad and my brother, sister and I when we were little. So I used to go to the Anglican church here in Yeppoon, which used to be in the middle of town. One day, my mum let me go to a tent ministry that was down on Braithwaite Street. I feel it must have been a Baptist ministry. And I was about 12 years old, I think. And it was there that I gave my heart to Jesus. I still remember praying that sinner's prayer and knowing that somehow something was different about me. As you all know how the story goes, without discipleship, I grew up, left school, I went off the rails. I got myself into many awkward situations which should have spelt tragedy. Not sure what the next slide is, but let's have a look. Oh, there you go. That's me when grade 12. Sort of spelt tragedy, and any thoughts of God were gone. I was in the wilderness, traversing the same territory for many years. I got myself into trouble with alcohol, drugs, and sex. And now, as I look back, I realise that God had other plans. Through his prevenient grace, I see how many times he protected me. He kept me safe. Terrible things happened to some of my friends, but somehow I was safe and unharmed. I worked in the casino industry for 20 plus years, right up until my children were born. And if you know anything about the casino industry 30 odd years ago, the wages were high, life was easy, uniforms, meals, some cases accommodation was provided. So we were living the life. I began my career at 20 in 1984 when Jupiter's Casino first opened on the Gold Coast. I really enjoyed the hospitality people. I really love people. And it offered a lot of travel opportunities as well. I ended up moving to Adelaide and then decided to go abroad and work on cruise ships in the Caribbean. That's me. We'll just leave that one there. I can reminisce back in the day. That's working on the cruise ship. That's the crew that I worked with. They're all British croupiers as well. I was the only Australian on board. So a girlfriend and I jetted off to America. We had no job offer. We just had a phone number and some names and a dream. And off we went. We were both offered jobs. We ended up in Jamaica at the US consulate all by ourselves, 5 a.m. in the morning, lining up with everybody else. And I kind of stood out. I was the tall, white, red-headed girl. And in amongst a sea of very colourful faces. And stereotypically, we were afraid, but the people were lovely. They offered us food and coffee and, made sure we got to our place in the line safely. To cut a long story short, my friend and I were separated, placed on 2 different cruise ships, and I was working in the Caribbean and met this Filipino guy. And it wasn't until then that I even thought about God again. He reintroduced me to God, and I started to remember Jesus and what he had done for me. It was still party central. It was nothing really had changed, but the thought was there. We got married. We honeymooned in Las Vegas. We had a fabulous time. We worked for another year on the ships. I became pregnant, but sadly that we miscarried that baby. Now, normally the cruise ship company would send you straight home, but they allowed me to stay on the ship until I was fully recovered and I was allowed to stay and work again. But after that, I became homesick and we moved back to Australia. We ended up moving to Alice Springs, where all of our children were born. They're called Yeppoon babies, and that's the Aboriginal name for Alice Springs, or something like that. Now, with the birth of our firstborn, Jasmine, I realised that I needed to settle down and become a mother. But it was hard to let go of that lifestyle. It took me quite a few years to adjust. I went on to have 2 more miscarriages, and I realised that our children are a precious gift from God, and that as a mother, it was my responsibility to teach them about him, but I didn't know where to start. When Jasmine started school, we didn't want to just send her to any old state school. She was too precious for that. So we looked around and we conveniently found a little Christian school just around the corner from our house. And we lied on our application. We said that we attended church regularly, which was pretty much a lie. We went at Christmas and Easter and, the odd time. But anyway, our precious little one was enrolled in transition. Jasmine loves school. So did I. I loved that school. I met these amazing Christian teachers, and they were so joyful. They were so loving, but it was a genuine love. They loved our daughter and our family so much. They welcomed us in. They started every day with praise and worship, and I'd never seen this before. I just loved how these people were so open and praising God. I couldn't get enough of being there. I was that overzealous parent who was always there. Kizzy understands what I'm talking about, yeah. I was that overzealous parent who would never leave. And Mrs. Peck, she was the most loving teacher. I just wanted to be in her class. I wanted to learn from her. And she encouraged me to send Jasmine to Sunday school, and that was at the Baptist Church in Alice Springs. They had a bus to pick them up as well, so I didn't have to go to Sunday. I didn't have to go to church. I actually think I didn't feel worthy to go to church, and eventually, I walked through the doors. I started attending that church, and it was like the pastor had been standing outside my kitchen window. It was just like, oh, how do you know I'm going through that? How do you know? And it was quite, for me, it was quite amazing that was happening to me. I've lost my place. Oh yeah. So I learned who Jesus really is, and I learnt what he had done for me. I truly gave my heart to him, and I was baptised. I started teaching in the Sunday school, which as a new Christ follower, I got more out of it than the kids. the other teachers saw how much I thrived on this, and they told me I was a natural teacher. Mrs. Peck told me I should have been a teacher. So 25 years ago, or 20 years ago, because you were 5, 20 years ago, that seed was planted. As I think about it now, by doing nothing about that and not watering that seed that was planted all those years ago, I was actually letting myself stay in the wilderness. It may not have seemed like it on the surface. I was attending small group. I was going to ladies' Bible study and mothers' group. Our 4 beautiful children were born. We were settled. We stayed in Alice Springs for 14 years. I started to sprinkle some water on the seed. I started to move out of the casino industry, and I started to move into teaching early childhood music classes, kinder music. I ended up having a studio within the church. They really supported me in that change of career, I guess. And eventually I started working in childcare centres as well with my music classes. And at its peak, I had about 100 students. I was a teacher, but somehow still in the wilderness. God had other plans. We moved our family, after 14 years in Alice Springs, we moved our family to Yeppoon. I was born here. My mum and dad were still here. I wanted to be closer to my parents. So I'd been away for about 20 years from Yeppoon. I wanted to be nearer to them so I could help them out as Dad was getting ill in his old age. And when we moved, I didn't attend church. I was mourning for my church family in Alice Springs and afraid of coming to a church here because I didn't know what to expect. Would I find the same family? Would I be accepted? When they found out about me, would they still like me, you know? Maybe you won't after tonight. My friend Kerry invited us to the Wesleyan church, and I made Romy go along first, as you do, to see if it was okay, see if it would check out. And he came and he was happy, so it was all good. So I had gone deeper into the wilderness because I still wasn't following God's plan for my life. Once we started attending church, I did start to teach Sunday school again. I started up my kinder music. I started going into childcare centres. I wasn't a very good businesswoman. It actually was a very expensive hobby, and I didn't want to give it up. But God, I started running a mothers group at church called MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers. And we actually started that here in this building, not long after this building opened. So I was teaching young mothers again. I also worked at Girls' Time Out in Rockhampton, working with young mums, teaching young mums again how to be a mother, how to basically how to find themselves as well, and teaching them craft for relaxation. But the thing that I had fallen on was that things that I was doing were more important. I had to do those things to be important to God. So back around the mountain, God had more for me to do, but I just couldn't see it. Now, at that time, and I'm very excited because my friend is here, a new family came into the church, and our children became great friends. I need to move on, sorry, I'm moving on. That's my husband and I in Mexico. That's us. That's my 4 beautiful children. We'll just leave it there for a bit. So our daughters became instant friends. I think Juliana was maybe 2, nearly 3. And they just became instant friends. Juliana just attached herself to their family. And it was it was at that time she encouraged me as well to become a teacher. It was at that time that Romy got a job at Heights College. Now, I'm not going to tell you that story because that's another God story, and he's giving his testimony next week, so he needs to share that story next week. That's his part of, even though it's my God story too, it's his God story to share. I was still teaching early childhood music, but I wanted something different. I wanted to get into schools and teach early childhood music in schools, but schools won't take you unless you have a piece of paper. And I didn't have that piece of paper to say that I was a real teacher. And so with encouragement and support, I enrolled in uni at 47 years of age. I just felt that was what I needed to do. So while other people at that age are planning their retirement, I was starting uni. I was right in there with all the school leavers, full-time uni. My entry into uni was really quick, easy. Most people would have done the STEPS course, which is a bridging course for study. Not me. I just jumped straight in and got started. I had a plan to complete the course in 3 years, get a job and be working full-time by the time I was 50. Man makes his plans, but God sits back and laughs. God had another plan. That's from the Message Bible, in case you don't know that. I loved uni, I loved learning, and I loved the study. I threw myself into it. I worked really hard. I neglected my family. My poor husband, he picked up the slack. And 18 months into my degree, my dad became really sick. I had to defer everything and take care of him. My mum doesn't drive, so I had to take them to all of their appointments, and I had to accompany Dad and Mum to Brisbane for Dad's open heart surgery. I deferred uni completely, and it was during this time that Romy also became sick. And so I just had to drop everything. I had to become the wife, the mother, the daughter that I was supposed to be. Sadly, my dad passed away, but not before. I actually got to spend a lot of time with him when he was in hospital. And I knew that he had accepted Jesus. And his funeral actually became a celebration. And I was blessed by that time that I had spent with him while he was sick. Mum and I became much closer as well. Oh, there's my dad. While I was looking after Dad, I just want to tell you some of the God incidences that happened while I was looking after my dad. He went down for a 6-week checkup at Prince Charles Hospital. So it was Dad and I accompanied him on the plane. On the plane, he started to have some breathing issues, and we had to get oxygen for him. There was a lady sitting next to me, and she looked familiar, and I just thought, she must be a teacher from somewhere, I'm not sure. Anyway, so we were talking, and then Dad started to say he felt unwell. It turned out that she had actually been one of his doctors at the hospital and had treated him in the last few months. And so she knew him. And she wasn't supposed to be on that plane. She was going to Theodore or somewhere out west for a wedding. Her flight had been cancelled due to storms or something, and she had actually had to travel to Brisbane and go a different way. I think she was supposed to go via Townsville, and it changed, and she was sitting right next to us. So the steward that was on the plane, he was actually a trained nurse, and they were able to, I had to get out of the way, and they just administered to Dad. And when we got to Brisbane, when they bring the fireys on first and then the ambulance later, but they thought Dad was travelling with his own personal physician because she was able to just give them all the information. So they put us in an ambulance. Now, the ambulance is only obliged to take you to the nearest hospital. We were supposed to be going to Prince Charles Hospital that day. Now, the closest one was Royal Brisbane Women's and Children's Hospital. And I just said to them, look, we've got a 6-week checkup for my dad. That's where we're going. Can you take us there? And said, well, look, we're actually not supposed to. We'll have to find out if we can do that. And sure enough, they were able to take us there. When we got there, this is what blew me away. This guy, one of the doctors that had treated Dad for his heart operation was there. I thought they had radioed ahead and called him in. No, he was there. He was a resident and he had been rostered in emergency. And so he knew exactly what was going on, knew everything, took us straight in. You know, everything was just, they were just on top of everything straight away. I had nowhere to stay. When we'd gone down for his heart operation, Mum and I stayed with my cousin. Now, she was supposed to be away during this time, and we were only going to be there for a day. I rang her just on the off chance, and her trip had been cancelled, and she was there, and gave me all the directions to get there. And it was about an hour's bus trip away, but that was the only place I could stay. Got on a bus. Now, this is sorry, it's taking a bit long, but I got on a bus. And I think I got to my cousin's, and then the next day got on a bus to go to the hospital. I must have looked kind of distraught, I don't know, but this bus driver just started chatting to me, and I was just telling him about Dad's situation. He said, all right, so you're going to need this bus pass, you're going to need to do this and do that. You're going to need to go to the newsagent in Chermside Shopping Centre and get a bus pass. And I'm just like, country bumpkin, no idea. And I'm walking through Chermside Shopping Centre thinking, where on earth is this newsagent? And this lady and her daughter were walking beside me, not talking to me at all. But the girl said to her mother, oh, we're going to meet such and such down at the newsagent. And my little ears just pricked up, followed them to the newsagent, nearly hugged them, just... Anyway, got my bus pass, everything was good, went and saw Dad, everything was okay. Went back, same bus driver. This is a city with lots of buses. It doesn't happen. Right down to the flights home, everything, it just fell into place, We were there for 2 weeks, so there's so many things that happen. Now, during that time, my poor husband was home by himself with the kids, and he wasn't well. So when we got home, I had to, balance the two. Gradually, Romy's health improved, and my degree just got put on the back burner. That was it. I decided that I would, who needs that piece of paper anyway? And I became a teacher aide. I applied at Heights College thinking they'll take me. No, there was no jobs. And I ended up working in learning support at Tarangamba State School, and the first day I walked in, they thought I was the relief teacher. I think because I was so old, I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. They just gave me a lesson plan for the day and gave me these learning support kids to work with. I didn't know any better. I thought this must be what the teacher aides do. So off I went, and I just did what I do, and I had a great time. I loved it, and they realised their mistake later in the day. Maybe the relief teacher turned up, I don't know, but I just loved it. And then that inspired me then to re-enroll in uni. I realised that no, my heart was still there. My heart for teaching was still there. So I re-enrolled. I did one subject at a time, and gradually 3 years turned into 7 years of uni. But I had to just trust God that I would get through to the end. It just seemed like a never-ending journey of this university degree. And probably a lot of you have been on this journey with me at some point. Eventually, I did get a job at Heights College. In 2015, I got a job at Heights College as teacher aide in prep. And coincidentally, the classroom that I'm actually working in now was opened in that year as well. There were no students, it was empty, but they had the classroom there. They didn't have enough prep students. They were aiming for a third strand of prep, but they didn't have enough students. And so the building sat there empty. And we used it for an extra room. So 2016, Heights College had a new kindy, and they were looking for an early childhood teacher. I was still studying, so I didn't bother applying. I just thought, well, I'm not qualified. The principal asked me, why haven't you applied? And I just said, well, I can't, So we sat down and we thought, okay, what are we going to do? She called me into her office for a chat. Now, if you've ever been to Heights College, if they call you into the office for a chat, it usually means a job interview. So we thought about some ways that we could fill this teacher position with me. And God had a different plan. He sent along another kindy teacher, a very qualified kindy teacher. And so that door was closed for me. And I thought, oh, well, I wasn't worried. Oh, well, it's all right. God has a plan. And if it was at Heights, good. If not, somewhere else. So I just trusted him. At that same time, prep enrolments had increased. And to the point of the classes were getting so big that by 2018, they needed a third class. I graduated with honours. Oh, you got to see my, go back. Graduation photo. I actually didn't attend my graduation. That's actually, we went to the Philippines instead. That's actually, that's just me in my graduation outfit. That's it, that'll do. Didn't have to tell you that. Looks good though. So I got offered that position, that prep teacher's position. The rest is now history. I'm now in my second year of teaching, and I love this job that God has given to me. I can be a faithful witness to the students that I teach and their families. And it's for such a time as this. The majority of my class are not Christian children. So me having come out of the wilderness has made a big difference. I can talk to these parents on a similar level to what they're at. I just feel like I'm there for this time. Of course, there's times when I feel inadequate. But when I look back and I see how God has placed me here, or he's put people in my pathway at the right time, in the right place, on so many different occasions, I can't doubt that he's placed me here, and how many times I have been around the mountain. As Pastor Ron was talking about this morning, I was thinking about my wilderness experience. I had to go on a journey of self-discovery and to know who I am, to know who Jesus is and what he has done for me. Nothing I have done or will do will bring me into the kingdom. It's all about Jesus. He guided me, he protected me, and I didn't even know to look for him. And when I did look for him, I could see that he had been with me all along, through everything. I want to live my life as a testimony to his goodness and mercy. I pray that other people's lives are touched and that they will want to experience God's grace the way I have experienced, and I just need to keep my eyes fixed upon him. That's my dad again. That's my mum. That's four generations? I don't know, there's lots of us anyway. That's the last one. Satan can whisper his lies, but he was defeated at Calvary. I know when I feel inadequate, I can rely on the blood of Jesus to get me through. My past is washed away. I can hold my head high adjust my crown, and I can remember that I am the daughter of the King. You can do it too. You just have to take that step and keep your eyes fixed on him. Thank you.